Lake Burley Griffin was closed again today, this time with record pollution levels. It's a major headache for the National Capital Authority. Its Chief Executive is Gary Rake, and he joins me tonight. Gary Rake, thanks for coming in.
Good evening.
Is today a once-off, or should we prepare ourselves for many more days like this?
Unfortunately, I think we do need to prepare ourselves for more days like this. We've recently seen an increase in the prevalence of blue-green algae on Lake Burley Griffin, and the trouble that we're having at the moment, it is a record high for the count of blue-green algae cells, and it's causing
by a long way, isn't it? I mean, the figures are quite astonishing.
Yeah, we're talking about more than 1,000 times the level at which we would normally close the lake to swimming activities. And what that means in terms of a cell count, 50,000 cells per millilitre worries us. At the moment, we're seeing 66 million in some parts of the lake. So
can we narrow it down, the exact cause of this current pollution?
Look, this current one is fairly easy to explain. Each autumn we get a turnover in the water within the lake. So water from the bottom of the lake comes to the surface and we do get an outbreak of this kind of algae. We've had a very calm and stable start to autumn in terms of weather, and that has made this algal bloom bigger and longer lasting than it normally is. We haven't had much rain, we haven't had much wind, we've had a series of cool mornings, warm days, and the algae has thrived, unfortunately.
We now have a lake, though, where you're urging people not to go anywhere near the water. You're urging them to keep their dogs out of the water. Basically, it's persona non grata. You have a report, the Bob Newell report, which is making recommendations about how you can go forward, how you can clean up the lake, how you can stop this happening. It's going to be expensive, but there are small things you can do. One of the things you want to do is engage the community more. Tell me what you're doing there.
We're looking for community partnerships. We're looking for actions that the community can take, either as individuals or as part of organised groups. As individuals, we can take care of the way we look after our own homes and the impact that has on our water catchments. So making sure that we don't over-apply fertiliser in our garden, pulling the leaves out of our gutters, not using the drains to dispose of paint thinners and other chemicals. But community groups and organised community groups can also be a big part of the solution. We've got partnerships with Friends of Grasslands doing work on Stirling Ridge, high in the catchment of Yarralumla. We have conservation volunteers working along the shore at Lindsay Pryor Arboretum removing weeds. River Smart and the Canberra Yacht Club recently removed woody weeds on Spinnaker Island and replanted natives. And Greening Australia are going to work with the National Capital Authority to help implement one of the recommendations of Dr Newell's report, and that is to look at re-establishing macrophyte beds or water plant beds within Lake Burley Griffin.
So how does that work? What do? You just plant a whole heap of what do you call them?
Macrophytes.
Yep.
Well, we'll actually have to look at the science. It hasn't been done in Lake Burley Griffin before, and one of the benefits of an organisation like Greening Australia, and we'll all remember their great efforts replanting the cotter after the 2003 bushfires, and that actually attracted me to join Greening Australia as a volunteer, and to this day I'm a volunteer director of Greening Australia. The organisation has a strong science focus. They will come in and examine the science of getting macrophytes to grow well. They'll look for innovative solutions. How do we re-establish macrophyte beds? And then I think there'll be room for community planting days or community lake care days where we try to really improve the health of the ecosystem.
Is that going to make a major impact, though? I mean, in the end, are you going to have to go to the federal government and ask for a major funding boost to try and tackle this problem once and for all, to spend a lot of money on trying to either prevent this happening or to have a foolproof way to clean up the lake when these sorts of things occur?
There's no real silver bullet available to us, and so even if we had unlimited financial resources, the methods of cleaning it up quickly are pretty drastic. We'd be talking about draining the lake, reshaping it and starting again. Now that would mean interrupting all of the ecosystems that we currently have. We would be draining entirely water out of Jerrabomberra wetlands, which is a wonderful environmental resource. We'd be interrupting the native vegetation that is thriving in the lake. At the moment, there are 3 or 4 platypus happily living in the Molonglo River between the airport and the hospice. So we have a water body that in many ways is healthy and functioning, but it has a couple of particular problems. Nutrient load is one, and unfortunately that emerges as symptoms like blue-green algae.
Just out of interest, to the platypus, are they affected by a lake when it's like it is today?
No, we haven't observed any negative side effects. So the platypus at the moment are
It's only early days, though. I mean, what if this pollution remains like this for weeks?
This is a pollution that unfortunately we've seen before, not at these high levels. In the river, the algae is nowhere near as bad. And so our main problem is out on central and west basin of Lake Burley Griffin. We don't have known platypus populations there, although it'd be great to clean up the lake and see them living in those areas and thriving. So we need to make sure whatever solutions we look at don't interrupt other parts of the ecology. We hear from time to time from salesmen from chemical companies who tell us that product X, if applied over the lake, would kill the algae. Looking through the literature and looking at some of the other places, we've also seen that sometimes it kills a lot more than the algae, and we'd be really worried.
So just quickly, what are we talking about? A couple of decades to get on top of this problem?
It is. It's going to be a couple of decades. The problem needs to be approached for what it is. This is a pollution problem. We need to make sure that we minimise the sources of pollution coming into the lake. We need to deal with the accumulated pollution that is already in the lake. And it's taken several decades to get this bad. It's going to take several decades to improve it.
Gary Rake, thanks for coming in.
Thank you.